Good afternoon, Atlanta. Welcome back to the fall season of Veteran Today. You are listening to WCEG Network, your new network station. I am Herman Anderson, one of the co-hosts. My other co-host, retired Colonel Brother Anthony Aiken, is on a vacation at this time. So me and my guest, Mr. Jim Fuhs, is going to have a good time the next hour helping veterans determine their benefits and their entitlement, how to get them, what's available, and we're gonna get started. As I say, I'm Herman Anderson. My guest is Mr. Jim Fuhs, and our disclaimer is the topics and option of those the topics and opinion are those of the show host, not the guests. Uh, there are several ways that you can listen to us today, watch us. We are live streaming. You can also watch us on WCEG TV Channel, WCEG Network, www.WCEG Talk Radio, and YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So you have quite a few options to take us in today, and we hope that you do. Uh, Let me give you a brief interview of my guest today. He's been here before, but we're going to refresh him. Uh, Jim Fuhs is the president of Fuhs Market. He's seasoned digital marketing consultant, a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel with over 30 years of business and social media experience. Jim has a unique approach in marketing that fuses Marine Corps leadership with next level digital marketing, offering his clients a perspective that seats him, sets him apart from the rest. And that's one of the things I want to talk about. That how can that set veterans apart from the rest and make us very competitive and also help us receive our benefits in good service. As a highly successful Marine Corps officer, Jim's leadership experience and expertise enable him to navigate the ever-changing market and technology landscape. He's a sought-after speaker, live streamer, podcaster, remote live streamer, virtual event producer with a passion for excellence that shines through everything. And I think that we talk about that on a lot on this program and in veteran organizations. How do we navigate the VA system? Jim's mission is to revolutionize the marketing, the industry with innovative strategies, unparalleled insight. His commitment to excellence and dedication to his client success has earned him a reputation as the innovator of the industry. Whether you are a small business or a large corporation, Jim is here to help unlock your brand full potential and take your business to the next level. Jim also serves on the executive board for the Georgia Veteran Network as the vice command, and he is the vice commander of community relations for the American Legion Post 129. So how are you today, Jim?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here, Herman. Appreciate all those kind words you said about me there. But no, it's great to be here and great to be speaking with another fellow veteran because that's one of the things I've really become passionate about lately is veteran advocacy because getting involved with United Military Care and the Georgia Veterans Network, apart from being a part of my Legion post, just as you are the commander of yours, is there's still a lot of folks out there, veteran wise, and their families that have slipped through the cracks that we need to help, and so that's really what I want to spend a lot of focus on. However long I have left on this planet, that's part of my I think my future mission.
That is great. I feel the same way you do, and that's what I've been doing for a few years now. And I put out my effort and pursue all the opportunities what are different ways we can do it, how we can make things better for veterans and their families. So, what's your first item you would like to talk about today?
Well, let's talk about what United Military Care is doing with the We Care fairs. I think the last time we spoke, we had just got done with the event in Rome, Georgia, and we ended up helping over 1,700 veterans and their families in one day at that We Care fair in Rome. And so now there's two more coming up here in the very near future. So if you're in the Atlanta area, October 5th, there's going to be one at Ebenezer Baptist Church. And then November 1st, there's going to be one at the Cobb County Civic Center. And so it's not just that, Kim Scofie and the team over there, put together an amazing event, but all these different folks, to include the VA, will be present and on site to help veterans either get started into the system if they haven't, or get them moving to the right people, helping them with their problems. I know for me, when I went last year to the Cobb event, I was able to get registered for the PACT Act, and so for me, and I know it's not the same for everyone, I've had a smooth process with the VA. I think the VA, we got to remember, there's a lot of bad said about the VA, but I also think that the VA is trying really hard, and it still comes down to its people. So like, I know if I talk to you, Herman, I'm going to get good guidance, good information, but I might be talking to somebody else that they're just having a bad day. So don't take that one person as being a symbol of what the whole VA has been about. And then we've got, the Georgia Department of Veterans Services. They're doing a lot for us in regards to, being able to working with the VA. They're working very hard with the governor and the legislators to get, new things in front of the vote, not for the voters, but for the legislatures to help us all move forward. And so these We Care fairs, everyone that's there is not charging a dime. This is truly events that everybody there is there to help veterans, whether it's mental health, whether it's other care. I mean, there's different agencies there. The Social Security Administration was at the last event. I definitely know, and I've been very impressed with Senator Ossoff's office is very active in helping veterans. And so he's got staff members at these events doing what they can to help us as well. And so I highly encourage you, get that word out to people. You can go to the United Military Care website for more information. And they're also out. We're on all the social media spots as well. Facebook and LinkedIn, and I think it might even be on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But I know not everybody's on that one anymore.
Yeah. Also, I have experience with the United Healthcare Fairs, and I think over the ones that that has happened the last two years, and even going back to the first one. I don't know if you participated, the one at the Galleria, where it was bigger than the one at the Cobb Civic Center. And I think the fairs are really very, very helpful, because based on my experience dealing with veteran service organization and dealing with people that need to walk in and get their claim started, it has created quite an opportunity where we know the date, we publish the date, we encourage veterans to go that date, and there are people there to put them in the system, to get them in the system. Whereas when you're dealing with individual claims organizations and VSOs, it's 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 more it's more complicated because in today's technology, there's not a whole lot of people that are hands-on that's going to sit at a computer and put your information in there for you. It's you you gonna have to do it. But at the fair is the way to get you in there. And also, as you say, Georgia Department of Veteran Services is very participatory in that process.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point, Herman. I think that's what I see as one of the big challenges right now is it's the technology. It's the fact that we're all being driven, if you don't already have one, to get, id.me, or I think it's login.gov, that you've got to have basically this digital account to get access to the systems, especially if we're dealing with the government specifically. And not to mention, right, I think we're like within a 5 or 7 month window where everybody has to have the real ID done with their driver's licenses, at least in the state of Georgia, which is going to be a requirement if you want to, travel on planes. But when you have, and I'll say sometimes it's not even necessarily the really old veterans, but we'll just say veterans that didn't grow up around technology, or is like my friend that I work with in a software company calls it. We're the native analogs, right? We didn't grow up with technology, and so I'm sure you may feel the same way. 30 years ago, I didn't necessarily, think that I would have a cell phone, or we remember those people would have like those big giant brick phones in their car, but like they were the rich people, right? It's like it wasn't meant for us regular folks, and so, but we've even found at some of these We Care fairs, like some of these folks don't even have email, right? It's like this is all. It's I don't even know that it's new to them. It's intimidating, right? It's this whole thing of like I don't like this. It's a concern about your privacy being invaded, and so I think the challenge for us, overall, whether it's VSOs like the American Legion, is how do we help those veterans that kind of have this technological fear, or don't even have really the finances to go out and buy a smartphone or get a computer to help them get in the system. How do we help our service officers, as an example, at our post, have access to, if you come in physically, we can help you get started so that they don't have to wait for events like the We Care Fair to get moving. And I think that's one of the big challenges. I think it's what we see, and this is part of what we're going to do with the Georgia Veterans Network in conjunction with United Military Care, is create more education, right? Let's educate people. How do they get these things done? Like what are that, they're working on an app that if you use the app, it'll, you say what you're looking for, and it's going to send you or give you that info of this is the group that can help you. And it's kind of like if they don't, it's like it's going to get reported, because I think that's the other thing. You can say what you do, but do what you say. I think that is one of the big challenges, is you kind of hit on it, right? I can't tell you how many times I hear about these people. It's like, well, I've been trying to get my claim done, and I called, this or that organization, like you were talking about earlier, and nobody's called me back. And I can see where it can be very frustrating for them. I was at Dobbins a couple weeks ago for their family day, and we had a table there for our Legion post, and that was what I heard more than once from some folks that were veterans, and some of them it sounded like they'd been dealing with this for a long period of time, and I think that's very unfortunate.
It is that's exactly what I hear in what I there are quite a few veterans out there, I'd like to say, for whatever reason, and you are correct about technology. I also work for AT&T. I, rem I remember when the bag phone came out, and I was just reminiscing, me and a friend of mine this week. I and because at that time I did understand telecommunication technology. It has passed me by, but I never dreamed that all this stuff that we do with an iPhone that
Mm-hmm.
would be available, uh, and that such a large portion of the world is that's how we function, and it 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 has left a section of our population out, and and that's a challenge.
Well, Herman, let me ask you because I mean, I know you're supposed to be asking me questions, but I'm really curious from your perspective, especially based on your background. Do you think there's some things that we should be looking at doing that could help that portion of the population, so to speak?
Well, I think what you mentioned is education, and with the Georgia Department of Veteran Services and with the network, the Georgia Veteran Network. I don't know too much about that organization, but I think that's a start in it in the We Care Fairs. And that's a start. I think it we have to come up with because I don't think any of us had the answer at this moment, a way to initially uh, get these people that that have been trying for for an example, I actually know people that's been trying for 15 years, and they still are within the system. And there are people that has given up because they had the bad experience you mentioned. They came to a meeting, or they came to an event and wanted to input their information into the system, but they really didn't bring their D to 14, or didn't have the information that it's it's needed. So number one, education is is very important. And I know we tend to do a lot of Zoom meeting in there. I mean, it's there need to be a little bit of the old fashioned stuff. I mean, not that the pandemic is at rest, whatever we want to call that, where we we set up a couple of hours in the community and invite people to come in. Is I think that is uh, that is a start.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? Because it's like not everyone's comfortable with this, so yeah, no reason not to, actually have in-person meetings or even have a way to record that in-person meeting so that you can play it maybe for people that weren't able to make it, so at least they get an idea of what's going on. Because obviously sometimes it's a challenge for people to be able to make that time. I mean, just like I know we've got people watching us live and we'll have people watching us on replay. And so those are kind of some of the things that we need to think about, I think, as well, is, how do we meet people where they're at and not always make it about us, I guess is how I would look at it.
And also is a good thing about the we care fair is what that's uh people are able to come there for an example and get and get food, get a haircut. It's and it's I think that's a start that motivate people to, it kind of pushes them a little bit to look into what more is available. So I think that's a good start.
Yeah, they're even going to have a couple of things too. The last time, I think they're going to be able to do it this time. You can get your ID card process started if you maybe don't have a VA ID card. And they're actually at the one in Cobb specifically. I don't think they're going to be able to do it for the one at the church. They're going to have, I guess, what they call VA decision makers, that if your claim is in that part of the process where it's like they're working on that final decision, that they can make that decision there. So that's something that I heard hasn't been done in quite a few years. And so I think that's going to be exciting for some people that maybe have been kind of caught up in a little bit of a, we'll call it that bureaucracy, that they can actually maybe get some things moving forward. So I think that's another great thing about this in-person event that you wouldn't necessarily get if it was virtual.
So, in as no, most veterans are kind of you're a marketing person, but most veterans are more no marketing. I mean, that's, I think that's very great, and we need more people like you that can use their marketing and promotion skills to just to get veterans to realize the opportunities and to take a look at getting in the system, then navigating the system. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it, as even as an example, what we're doing here today is, if you're someone in a position that can kind of help people, guide them towards the right way to go, get on podcasts, or get on shows, get interviewed, so you can get that word out, because people are listening in different places. I mean, I think a lot of times, and that's something that we're going to be starting soon with the Georgia Veterans Network, is a podcast. And I'm sure we'll have you on it at some point, because we want to talk to people that are not only veterans, but people that are helping veterans, so that at least in the state of Georgia, you start to learn about all these different organizations. And so it's really a way to, one, educate people what's out there, what's available, but two, how do we get the word out? And so it's, unfortunately, it's that message that has to get repeated, because one of the challenges, as an example, that you run into is, excuse me, when people say, "Oh, well, did you go to the website?" Right. Well, the problem with websites in some aspect is I got to know what I'm searching for, and I think that can become very frustrating. Right. It's like, just give me what I need. So it's more, of a push versus pull mentality. And so I think that's one of those things that I've always seen as kind of the difference, where you just think, oh, you got to have a website. But, and I don't know about you, Herman, I don't spend all day going to websites, right? I probably am more likely to maybe search for, as people like to call it, YouTube University. I'm going out there looking for answers to my question. Maybe I start to follow, a Facebook page or a LinkedIn page that I can get that stuff in my feed, and maybe they provide me some good information. And then even probably a step better, but I think sometimes that's getting, if you want to call it difficult, is email. Because what's happening with email is we're starting to get so much in some cases that we're just like, it's too much for me to handle. And so you maybe don't see that email that said, hey, here's, XYZ that's going to help you. And so that's another thing of how we do that. One of the things I've seen, and even more so specifically like at my Legion post, is, we have a huge membership, But when we try to get people to do stuff that involves, signing up for something on the web or whatever, scanning a QR code, some of these older folks, they're like resistant. Ah, well, why can't I just write something on a piece of paper? Why can't I just, do this or do that? And it's like, okay, I get that, but it's becoming a smaller and smaller percentage. And not that we don't want to serve them, but I think we have to figure out, like, how can we, I guess you could say, meet halfway. So I think that's one of those things that, from a technology, and then again, right, not everybody wants to be on Facebook or whatever. I mean, some of the things that we've done, specifically like with the Georgia Veterans Network and even at our post, is we've built company pages for those organizations and gotten people to follow us, so that now we can start putting information out that is specific to the organization, as opposed to, oh, I got to follow Herman on Facebook or Herman on LinkedIn to see what's going on. Well, that gets really difficult, because you may be, especially when you think of these social profiles, anytime you comment, share, post, whatever, it becomes this chronological feed and the stuff starts to disappear. It's very hard to keep that organized, where if I can go to, these company pages, right, it's like, hey, here's our latest and greatest stuff. You can kind of repeat that information every once in a while, and you can have, you can set up events and invite people that are following your page to the events. You can create newsletters on LinkedIn that you can get information out, not just to the people following your page, but then they can share it with someone. So I think that's part of the other challenge, is making people understand that. I was interesting. I was watching the Legion's national convention on YouTube, but what I didn't necessarily understand is, while they had these live, talks, speeches going on, they had comments turned off on YouTube. And so it's like, well, why not let me make a comment? Because I'm not expecting them to answer it right now, but maybe it's something like, oh, well, let's get back in touch with this person later and follow up with them. It was almost like they were afraid of, I guess, as we like to call it, the trolls, or people just leaving stuff. But, that just takes a moderator. And so I think, the communication between, we'll say, veterans and their families and these organizations should be two-way and not one way. And I think that's something that overall we got to get better at.
I totally agree. And you mentioned websites. In my nonprofit, Veteran Helping Veterans, which is 15 years old, I see the issue. I see it with the American Legion. Is we actually debate, do we need to update the website? Do we? And I go to the website and see how many people that are actually, how many hits I get. I'm not getting any. And like I said, the members, quite a few of the members, definitely not going to go to the website and look for stuff. If you give them a particular link to go to the website, click on this, like you say, that will work sometimes. So I like your idea of having an organization website that deals specifically with certain items or certain services. And so it's sort of like having a particular product line. This, if you're looking for services, if you're looking for mental health services, this is where you go. You're looking for homeless information. No.
Right. I mean,
We
we constantly talk about people wanting to have, for lack of a better term, this one-stop shop. and I think that's where, as an example, this app that Kim and the team are working on could be helpful. But I think you still got to get people to use it. You got to get people to download it. They've got to get comfortable with it. I think even sometimes with a smartphone, right? I know I've got so many apps on my phone. Sometimes I'm kind of like, which of these do I even not use? Like I downloaded them at first, but do I even use them? And so I think that becomes a little bit of a challenge as well. I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction, but you're still going to have these people because they're going to want to call you, Herman. They're not even going to respond to text. You're going to have to call them. They're going to, and if you get a hold of them, or they're going to call you back, hopefully, and so, because a lot of people too, if I don't recognize your number, at least for me, if I don't know your number, I'm not answering it, right? Or I'm going to let it go to voicemail, because there's so many scams going on, right? There's scams with text, there's scams with phone calls, especially, my father went through this several years ago where these people called acting like they were the IRS and he owed all this money and they were going to send the share, that's happening to folks. And, sometimes when you get older, you don't necessarily think things through and you start to panic and you start to do things that if you had a little bit more rational thought, or even the scary thing with AI as an example is people are now able to clone voices, right? So someone could take your voice, turn it into AI and call someone and they would think they're talking to you. I mean, so it's a lot of things, right? We need to educate people about security, making sure they're dealing with the right people. I think, that's part of what we're doing with the Georgia Veterans Network is we're going to be, because we're what's called a community veteran engagement board. We're actually like a second tier, recognized partner with the Veterans Administration. But we're going to be vetting some of these organizations that say that they are helping veterans, because I'm sure you've seen it, sometimes that these people say they're helping veterans, but they're really just trying to line their own pocketbook. But I think the other piece of that is I think sometimes we have, it's kind of like we got 5 organizations all trying to do the same thing. And why not let the one that's best at it do that, have the resources for that? Because I think that even sometimes creates confusion and definitely I think, creates a lot of wasted resources and time and energy, in my opinion.
I think it does. And I don't, if you're not my call ID, like I say, I let you go to voice message and I call you back. And I get a lot of scam calls also because of age, because of being a veteran, you have people, for an example, everyone would like to call a veteran and tell them you need additional insurance, you need supplemental insurance, whatever. So we have to screen those out, and that's a challenge.
Right.
And as as far as the events that are coming up, is it at the Galleria?
No, the one on the 1st of November is actually at the Cobb County Civic Center
Okay.
this time. So I think for now that's the plan. That may be somewhere they decide to go in the future. I actually don't know which is bigger, but I think they like the parking lot allows for easier for parking. They also have kind of a line where like you can drive through and like you're talking about for some of these folks, they're giving them food and clothing if they're in need of some of that stuff on the outside, and then inside is more of the you want to call it, the more focused services.
So as we deal with that, and uh, you mentioned getting our elected officials involved. What are your thoughts on veterans uh, letting making our elected officials more aware of the issues we are dealing with uh,
I,
in the process?
that is a definite need. I actually attended an event with the Georgia Veterans Network a few months ago at the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, and there was a state, representative, state senator, and Georgia state, not federal level, that had talked about some of the things that they were doing for veterans. But one of their big things is like, we need veterans to tell us what is it that you need help with from us, from a programmatic standpoint. I mean, because they don't. I mean, when you really think about it, Herman, I mean, we are both in a minority to begin with by serving our country. But then when you take it kind of to that next level of legislators, it's the same thing. Very few of them have actually served, so they don't. They haven't walked in our shoes. They haven't seen what our families have gone through, and so that's where I think we can definitely, all of us can be an impact. So whether it's calling them, writing a letter to them, going to meetings and town halls that they may have, let your legislator know how they can help us, help the veterans in the the state and local areas, because I think there's still a lot that could be done. I mean, I've got even right now my daughter is married to a Air Force enlisted staff sergeant out in California, and they've got a young child, and it's too expensive for her to go work, right, in a job because of the cost of daycare. So how do we overcome some of that? How do we help these military spouses? We've got huge Guard presence here especially in the Atlanta area, and they get called up a lot more than I ever thought they would, especially after 9/11. And so they're running into issues that we maybe never imagined, pre 9/11, that aren't necessarily getting addressed as well. So I think that's where, we can, I think, be a bigger, or I should say, that's where we can help our legislative people know, hey, this is how you can help us. And so that's another thing. I think we tend to not want to get involved in politics, but when you really look at it, you have to get involved to some extent. And I think the thing that I've, like I said, that I've grown, respectful with Senator Ossoff is he's definitely more of a, hey, it's more of a bipartisan effort sort of thing. It's not a one side versus the other side, and that's refreshing to see. And so I think those are the things that it shouldn't be one side or the other. It should be like both sides working together to help the veterans. And then, and granted, this is another thing that comes up from time to time. I think especially when you think of the training that we've both gone through in our past, it's not so much. Yes, we can hand out stuff to people, but really, it's more about giving people a hand up. Because one of the things that Kim and I talk about at times is, as an example, when you have these people, whether it's getting food or getting money to pay the rent for this month. Well, what's going to change a month from now? That's where we've got to break that cycle. That's where we've got to figure out, how do we get this person to the next level so that they don't have to keep doing this? And I think that's that's one of the challenges I think we really have right now in our society. And I'm not saying that, I don't even know what that population set looks like, but I know it's there. And I think that's one of the bigger challenging ones, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And speaking of the state legislature, uh, I have had a conversation with a couple of legislatures, the state legislatures, uh, and it is along the line that you mentioned. It is uh, they tell me you guys uh, need to tell us, as far as state resources, what what your what your requirements are, and it has to be more than just words in it. You uh, have to write it and present it to your legislature so they can your state representatives so they can sponsor it. And they also say a lot of what if veterans do their homework and present what they're asking for, it gets a lot of attention. So it boils down to, again, within uh, my organization or within uh, organizations, is the resources and the willingness to actually, put some skin in the game, is put some time in to present it for the board and see what happens.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think because I think mental health is probably definitely the thing that's at the top of the list right now, and it's we see it everywhere. Right? We see it affecting families. We see it affecting veterans, and the other thing too that people don't realize is that PTSD isn't always from people that were in combat, and that was actually something that was surprising to me. But even a lot of these veteran suicides are not necessarily by people that went overseas. And so it's this whole thing. I mean, sometimes it's like maybe it's they feel like, oh, because they didn't deploy or whatever, they don't feel like they are worthy. And I mean, it's a whole litany of things. And I think too, uh, Don Long, who's a friend of mine, he's brought up that we also need to change the narrative of where it's not that because you're a veteran you're broken, right? Veterans can bring a lot to the table. They can bring a lot to organizations, and so I think that's the other thing is we have to change the narrative. Another group I know, Zero Mills' organization, right? They're emphasizing that we should be military thriving, as opposed to maybe some of the things of what people think of when they think of veterans.
I totally agree. And like you say, it's we veterans are in the minority. I believe less than 1% of us actually serve. So we no, I only served 4 years, where you serve 20 or 30 or however long. When you transition to civilian life or whatever you want to call it, it's a different world. And and like I say, the skills that we have developed being in the military, the discipline, should be an asset rather than a liability. Uh, it's veterans have the challenge of convincing people to hire them because I spent the last 20 years in the military in IT, but my technology is not the same as yours. So uh, I have to convince you that all the skills that the military paid for is really better than yours. But that's a challenge we have.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll say it, my perspective from when when I retired, got out, was I didn't necessarily feel like, as much as, they have this transition program, whether you've spent, 4 years or, you know, 30 years, that they're like, okay, here's what you get once you get to the other side, if you want to call it. But I don't really think they prepared us for what was next, right? I mean, preparing for what's next, whether it's a new career or retirement, true, like retirement, that's not something you do in a couple of months. That's something you got to be thinking about in advance. Like, 2 years out from maybe when you think you're going to get out, it should be like, okay, well, what are you planning to do? Okay, here's some resources that'll help you. I I don't think they've done a good job of that. A lot of times you have these young, first term guys like like yourself back in the day, that you think, oh well, I'm going to get out and the grass is going to be greener on the other side. And I'm sure you've run into people, especially being at the Legion, that they still like, I wish I had never got out, right? That's what they're always saying. I wish I had stayed in. And I think that goes back to, the military sometimes is kind of like who you were surrounded by, right? If you were surrounded by people that motivated you, told you, hey, these are things you're going to be able to do if you stay in, or if you do this or do that, you were maybe more likely to stay in. Where if you had, your immediate supervisor was just a jerk to you all the time, you're like, I'm getting out of here. I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore. But it's the same in civilian life, and that's what they don't understand. But at least it seems like sometimes, right? You've got that military family. We've got, we're blood brothers from both serving, and we have that commonality that you don't always get when you are, in coming into a civilian organization, where they don't have that self discipline a lot of times. Not to say that there aren't people that do, but I think for me, I don't know about for you, that's where the military helped me, is, because I enlisted first, is I did get that discipline from going to boot camp and getting that training, and it's been invaluable to me, for my career and my life.
Yeah, so well, me, my co-host Anthony, we talk about it sometime. I I was 18 when I went in, and some of the discipline they taught me about making my bed, folding my clothes. I still do it today. So, so it definitely re- uh, teaches you discipline, and uh, I believe most veteran takes it. It's an asset, takes it with us throughout life, and I'm kind of uh, talk, talking about the the national VSO organizations lobbying and whatever. It's no sometime in some of the conversation I've had is the amount of money that the military, the United States government spend on fighting wars, on getting us ready for wars, is the budget is out of the ceiling. But the amount they spend taking care of us as we come back, whether whatever condition we is in, is an issue that people need to be, in my opinion, made more aware of.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, that's probably, a big part of the problem. I mean, I remember that, when I was the comptroller at the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, my boss at the time, Major General Amos, who later became the commandant, he came up with this idea of like, hey, we need to like have a building, where we can let these guys kind of recover. And so that started what was at first the Wounded Warrior Battalion. So we actually had a place where these guys could, because they couldn't be a part of their regular unit, but we didn't want to kick them to the curb. So they were still on active duty. In some cases, it allowed them to develop some skill sets so that maybe they did end up, leaving the service. But it wasn't like, okay, you're wounded, you're injured, we're going to get rid of you. So I think, and that was probably about 2003, 2004. So that's only 20 years ago that, we started to even have that sort of, thought process. And of course, now that, technically we're not at war, depending on what you read, is that now being looked as like, well, we don't need to put money towards that anymore. We need to shrink that footprint down, or we're going to put it at just one place. I think that's some of the things that we really got to take a hard look at. Or does that become something that's more of a joint service, thing? Like, okay, for this area, this is where we send these guys and gals. If they've gotten wounded in combat or in training, as opposed to, but that it definitely hasn't always been that way, and we've been around for over 200 something years.
That's true. I got one more thought I want to throw out, and that's in all volunteer organizations in the military. I'm a member of AARP. People are not volunteering anymore. So, like with the VSO, our membership is shrinking, and we, for different reasons, when we present activities, it's a challenge to get enough volunteers. And so, what thoughts do you have on dealing with the issue of volunteers, and also actually in our VSOs, a lot of veterans are not joining anymore?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and is definitely a challenge. I mean, even though, as an example, Post 29 is, depending on who you listen to, we're the number one or number two in size in the state of Georgia. We have over, but when you include our, auxiliary and our sons and our riders, we've probably got 1,600 members. But it's probably, I'll say maybe 10 or 20% that, if you want to call it, get active, and by active meaning like showing up to the post, and that's not all the time. And so what I see, and I guess because sometimes I look at myself, from one perspective, I mean, because I am AARP eligible, but I try to think I'm in the middle. I think that we have to think of, and I think this is why a lot of these, if you want to call it, other veteran groups and organizations have popped up, is these national, VSOs that have been around forever did not adjust to change. They didn't say, how can I serve that young, soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, now Space Force, Coast Guardsman, and their family that don't want to go, sit at a bar and have a drink. What can I do event-wise that's going to attract them? How can we show them working in the community? How are we helping in the community that makes them say, I want to be a part of it? And so I think, like for our post, we have this run as one example where we raise money for some local nonprofits that support veterans. But then it's like we're, for the first time, maybe in a while, or first time, because I haven't been here since I moved here in 2018, we're going to help with a day at a Habitat for Humanity build, right? So how can we do more things like that that are going to attract those younger veterans? Because we also got to remember, right, they're in sometimes in that stage of life of, I got kids, I got all these other things going on. So sure, I might come and do some of these things that you've got going on, event-wise, but I'm not ready to, have to go to all these meetings. And of course, I don't know about you, Herman, I'm not a big fan of meetings to begin with. So I think we have to think of how can we be more efficient and effective in meetings. Like I get it. Some of it is probably, constitution, bylaws, historical precedent, but what can we do to streamline that process to make people want to be a part of our organization? And part of that is letting them know, what is it we do? Like, people don't know that, like, our post helps sponsor the Veterans Court in Cobb County. There's nothing out there, and that's a fault on us that we got to do better at. So it goes back to educating people as well as what are we doing to help veterans?
That is great. I actually, my organization, Veteran Helping Veteran, we helped start the one in Clayton County some years ago. So it's in, like I said, we have a person on the court and all of that, but it's what you said is actually true. We don't do enough publishing and even letting the members realize, what we're presenting and how much time this particular person is putting in doing that. And it's just, we have to do a better job of recognizing people when they are putting the time in. So this has been a great 58 minutes. It went by fast. You have any wrap ups?
No, just thank you for having me. Like I said, big thing is, if you want to help veterans, contact United Military Care, the Georgia Veterans Network. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, websites. If you're a veteran, take a look at the VSOs in your area and how you can help them.
Well, that's what we will do, and I am I'll have to contact you regarding the Georgia Veterans Network. I don't have that information, but here I'm totally plugged into that, and I make the organizations and the people that I deal with aware of all of the opportunities, and my Veteran Helping Veteran organization will be looking forward to participating in some of the ones coming up. So I will contact the appropriate people. I have that. So
awesome. Sounds great.
Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for participating. It was very helpful. Hopefully, we helped a lot of veterans today, and we will continue to build our relationship as we move forward to help veterans. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is WCEG. Everyone, have a good afternoon. Thank you.